Welcome back to Evil Kitty Music Presents. All right, thank you for tuning in. This is week 4. Can't believe we have enough content for 4. Let's see how long we can keep this train rolling. Last week, I decided to do something a little different and talk about music and bands that I think you should hear that maybe you're not familiar with because they're not as mainstream as what you would hear on the radio. And we covered the album Sonic Machine by Powder. Hope you enjoyed that. Today, we're going to do another album, and I hope you enjoy this one equally. So on to our second album and second band. Also features a virtuoso guitar player. This one is a little more mysterious, wears a mask, also wears a chicken bucket on his head, and of course, I'm talking about Buckethead. So what do we know about Buckethead? Evidently, he was raised by chickens in a coop. He took guitar lessons from Mr. Big's Paul Gilbert. There's a lot of rumors out there that he is Paul Gilbert. It's not true. It's nonsense. Paul does speak very fondly of him. Buckethead's one of the most prolific songwriters out there. In the short time that he's been on the scene, he's written about 300 solo albums and has appeared on almost another 100 albums for other artists. That's 400 albums of material this guy has played. He's a prolific virtuoso guitar player, often makes the guitar poles for one of the fastest shredders out there. Usually you think of like the heavy metal shredders when you're looking at those lists, but Buckethead often makes it because of his fast playing and freakishly long hands, which he can stretch long distances on the guitar to get these crazy runs. He's an amazing player. So a little selfishly, I picked this because I am a Buckethead fan, but this particular album is more than just Buckethead, and I took the opportunity to take my stab at playing one of my favorite Buckethead riffs on this album. Hope you like my interpretation. All right, welcome back. Some of you may recognize that song is called Welcome to Buckethead Land. And obviously we're talking about the band Praxis, and we're talking about their 1992 album, Transmutation. What's that, Cardboard Brittany? Welcome to Buckethead Land isn't Praxis and isn't on this album? Oops, my bad. But I didn't lie to you. This album does have one of my favorite Buckethead songs of all time on it. It might not be Welcome to Buckethead Land, but it is a song called Interworld and the New World Innocence. And I am going to give you my interpretation of that song now. Hope you enjoy. All right, hopefully you enjoyed that. Obviously, that's an improvised lead that I put on that. That's not what Buckethead actually played on the track. So if you want to hear what Buckethead actually plays, you're going to have to check out the album. So now, a little more about the album itself. The album itself, as I mentioned, came out in 1992 and was a product of New York-based producer, musician, club owner Bill Laswell. He had come with Buckethead and Buckethead's longtime drummer, Brian Brain Mantia, and he paired them with an interesting duo. Bernie Worrell and Bootsy Collins of Parliament Funkadelic. Because obviously when you think guitar shredder, you think funk. Oddly enough, it worked out pretty well. A little bit more on Bootsy. Bootsy started off playing for James Brown. So him and Bernie Worrell are kind of R&B and funk royalty. And I'm sure it was quite an honor and a humbling experience for Bucket and for Brain to work with these two legendary artists. And what came out in this album are just these soundscapes, crossing genres. Every once in a while, you get the vocal stylings of Bootsy Collins. And just great artistry and virtuoso playing throughout the entire album. And it's a good introduction to Buckethead because it's not just your typical Buckethead guitar on steroids. It does have a lot of interludes with big keyboards and but not like regular keyboards like organs or soundscapes courtesy of Bernie Worrell, and of course that funk bass playing of Bootsy Collins. So definitely worth watching. Now, I never had the opportunity to see Praxis play live, but close. When I was in college back in the early 1990s, I was introduced to this album, this band, as well as some other albums with Buckethead by some college friends of mine. And one night they had mentioned that Buckethead was playing in New York City in a small club. So we had two choices. That was to stay in and study and be good students, or to go out and see Buckethead. So of course we went out to go see Buckethead. And we got there quite early. We were right at the front of the stage. And when Bucket and Brain, and they might have had a bass player, I don't remember, they started playing, it was nirvana. It was just musical ecstasy. It was a great experience. As the show went on, there was someone behind me who started shoving and pushing and trying to push their way in front of us, and that was starting to really irritate me. And as it continued, I had finally had enough of it. And I pulled out my secret weapon. Oh no. Actually, it wasn't a knife, but it was a fist. And I pulled up my fist and I was ready to just turn around and clock this guy. And as I was about to do it, my friend standing next to me just grabs my wrist and he says, "What are you doing?" I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, "Don't you know who that is?" And I looked at him like, "No, I have no idea who that is." He goes, "That's Bernie Worrell." I'm like, oh my God. I almost punched out Bernie Worrell. That would have been colossally stupid. So I back off and let Bernie pass, and Bernie jumps up on stage, sets up a keyboard, and starts jamming with Bucket and Brain. So basically I had three of the members of Praxis improvising. Thank goodness I didn't blow it for the whole audience by, punching out Bernie Worrell. But they started improvising and put on this just almost jazz style, but not jazz music, clinic of just improvisation between just world-class musicians, and it was awesome. So after the show, I think Bernie left because I don't remember seeing him after that. But Bucket and Brain exit backstage, and my friend looks over at me and he goes, "Let's go try to meet Buckethead." I look at him like, what do you mean, go meet Buckethead? How are we going to go meet Buckethead? He goes, "Well, let's just walk backstage. It's just a door. Let's just walk through the door and see what happens." So me being a little more conservative, a little afraid, look at him and go, "Yeah, let's just walk backstage. It's that easy." He says, "Well, think of it this way. If we go back there and there's security, we'll just play dumb and say we were looking for the bathroom. No harm, no foul." Well, that logic worked with me. I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot. So we did. We walked back, opened the door. There was no security. There was Buckethead, mask off, sweaty, obviously from his performance, and Brain sitting on a couch right there backstage. And I went up and we met Buckethead, which, by the way, is a rare occurrence. Buckethead is rarely ever seen without his mask. My guess is after incidents like that, he probably started using security to make sure people couldn't see him, because he's very protective of his actual personal face and likes to kind of hide his fame, I guess, behind a mask so people don't know what he looks like. But I wanted to get something from my brother, because my brother was probably 12 or 13 at the time, also a huge Buckethead fan. But I didn't have any merch on me because I wasn't expecting to meet the guy, right? All I had on me was my baseball cap. So I take off my baseball cap and I hand it to Buckethead and I said, hey, would you sign this to my brother, Kevin? And he did. He was really cool about it. Shortly after that, a couple of young ladies came backstage and removed their tops, and they wanted Buckethead to sign their breasts. So I let Buckethead alone, figuring that was going to be his personal time, and walked over and hung out with Brain, who was just the most chill dude ever, having a beer, had a conversation, talking about Bootsy, who wasn't there. But all in all, it was just a amazing experience. Fast forward a couple years later, 1997, I got to see Buckethead again, this time without Brain, but it was with his Giant Robot band. If you check out the album Buckethead Giant Robot, it actually does feature the song Welcome to Buckethead Land. So I managed to take this full circle and make that song related. So go me. Now, a couple years after I last saw Buckethead, Hem and Brain decided to join another band. You might have heard of that band. They're called Guns N' Roses. From 2000 to 2004, Bucket and Brain toured with Guns N' Roses. You can see him performing in videos from Rock in Rio. Obviously, this is after Slash and Duff and Matt Sorum had left the band, and Axl went on with it. He had replaced them with Buckethead. Later on, Buckethead left, and they replaced him once again, and we may talk about that guitarist in the future. Another great album. So anyways, worked out pretty good for Bucket and Brain, and some great stories and some great memories from me back in the college days. So if you're still with me, I want to end this video talking about some gear. If you enjoyed the guitar tones used in this video, they were all played on my Harley Benton SC 550 Deluxe. This is a pretty low budget guitar. I do own some nicer, more expensive guitars, but wanted to try something I had read about, and that was the Harley Benton, to kind of check out the quality and check out the tone. And the only modification I made to the guitar after I got it was I replaced the pickups with the stock pickups to the Alinco 2 Pros, which are the Slash custom pickups, because I wanted a little more of that dirty kind of Guns N' Roses growl to it. But other than that, it's a stock guitar. And I'm running it through a Positive Grid Spark 40 amplifier. This is also a pretty new product that came out in NAMM a couple years ago and is amazing. And it's really replaced a lot of the more expensive gear I've used. I do have a closet full of gear, but I feel like I can get just as good as a tone without using all the expensive, bigger, heavier pieces of gear that I have, just with this little amplifier. And the reason I bring these up is because if you're looking to get that kind of big guitar sound, but don't want to spend a lot of money, the guitar itself is about $270. As far as guitar goes, that's pretty low, pretty cheap, but it feels great, and you can hear how it sounds yourself, and you can judge for yourself how it sounds. I think it sounds pretty extraordinary. Even if you want to add the pickups that I put into the guitar, those pickups only retail for about another $200. So even with the pickups, all in, you're talking about under $500. The Spark amp itself is again about $300. So for about $600, you can get that big, expensive sound, and it's pretty portable and small too, so it doesn't take up a lot of room in your home or your recording. Now, the only other thing I did do is I did buy a special cable, which only runs about $5 or $10, that goes into the headphone jack and splits out to 2 guitar cables left and right, so I can get the stereo sound when I record. But really, for like $600, $610, somewhere in that range, you can get the exact sound I'm using here, and produce those huge sounds. What I'll also do is I'll provide links for the gear down in the descriptions, so that if you do want to check them out and look for yourself, you can. And I'll also, for anybody who has the Positive Grid Spark, I'll put what tones I was using. The only modifications I made in post-edit was a little EQ boost on the treble, just to clean up the muddiness a little bit. But that's it. Everything else is stock sounds coming right from that guitar through that little amplifier. And that's it. Another episode has come to a close. Remember to like and subscribe. If you're a local band, remember to put your links in the comments below so we can share your music with the world. I'll be sure in the description box to go ahead and put links to the gear I used, as well as the tones that I was used to create the tracks you heard on this episode. That way you know and you can play the same sounds I was using. And of course, if you have any other questions about any of this equipment, please let me know. I could do a product review, I guess. It's not really what my intent of these channels are, but there's plenty on YouTube you can find yourself. And until we meet again, thanks for watching and rock on.